All right, it's still very much the ultimate morning show here on Raypower 100.5 FM this Tuesday, 7th day in the month of April 2026. My name is Dima and I welcome you back from the network studio. Right now, we are live on YouTube where you can watch us this moment as we're about to review the papers, and the handle is Raypower Abuja. So, yes, talking about reviewing the papers, let's get right into it because we do have quite a number of the papers to check out this morning.
This is the newspaper review.
All right, I'll be starting off with the Standard Times newspaper, and the big story is ahead of 2027, and it says ADC issues INEC 72-hour ultimatum, threatens nationwide strike. That is really the big story there. Now to other stories here. Okpeyolo increased Edo State University Iyamo subvention to 250 million naira. Now this story is on page 3. And on NDPC probes the remitter, Sterling Bank over alleged data breach. This is on page 2. Yes, ahead of 2027 still, PDP holds rally, declares readiness to reclaim Kwara. Read that one also on page 2 of the Standard Times newspaper. Investigates threats against Sheung Okimbaloye and other journalists. The Nigerian Guild of Editors and Serap tells the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The story is on page 5. Plots to stop Obi from contesting 2027 poll underway, according to the camp. And this one is on page 9 of the Standard Times. And above the nameplate, Lagos set to prosecute 45 alleged tax defaulters. This opens on the front page here, continues on page 13. Still on the matter, says land disputes turns deadly. Farmer slaughtered in Ogbomosho as police arrest 3 suspects. Page 2, read there. Death toll climbs to 11 in Benue State and in Benue Easter attack, according to the community leader. The sad story. You can read that on page 3. And that's about it from the Standard Times newspaper. This time around, we're going to check out next the Daily Trust. Now, for the Daily Trust, one story here says, World Health Day being today. The story says funding gap persists amid fresh health workers strike. And this story, like I said, is on page 7. Despite hunger, Nigeria named Africa's top food waster. Now, this story is on page 34. How students were stabbed to death in Niger's university. Well, that story, sadly so as well, is on page 34 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Now to the Standard Times. 10 months to election. Opposition fight to stay on ballot amid legal and internal conflict. Page 6, read there. Still on World Health Day. Concerns over health funding, sustainability as U.S. exit leaves $1.9 billion deficit. Page 6, read. Tax dominates federal revenue as oil income declines by 26% in 15 years. The story is on page 15. Bandits plan reprisals in Zamfara as Plateau, Benue death toll rises. Page 30, read. Inter-Society claims 1,402 Nigerian Christians killed in 96 days. This is on page 7 of the Guardian newspaper. And according to a report here from the Guardian on page 3, it says banditry is weakening Nigeria's state structure. Also on page 3, Makinde, Momodu raised concern over devolution into one-party state. And still on page 3 of the Guardian today, reconciliation has collapsed in PDP, says the ex-chieftain. Now that, and lastly from the Guardian, audits multi-billion naira abuse to old Union Bank management. Like I said, this one is on page 18 of the Guardian newspaper. Now I'll be checking out next the Vanguard newspaper. Now the Vanguard, it says Christian leaders raise alarm over insecurity prosecution in northern Nigeria. This story is on page 11 of the Vanguard. Now moving on to the Plateau attack, still on the Vanguard, pages 11 and 16. It says 7 states evacuates 1,630 students from Unijers. Unijust student injured in attack dies after ICU battle. That's quite a very sad story there. All right, moving on to page 9 here is the PDP crisis. Benga Hashim weighs exit option. And Atiku to Tinubu, enough of hollow rhetorics on insecurity. This one you can read on page 8 of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. Federal government raises alarm over decline in barge operations and orders probe. This story is on page 14. And this, among others, completes the front page of the Guardian newspaper. Now I'll be checking out the Nigerian pilot, where we have the story on Easter. It says FCT residents decry hardship and low social activities. Now this story is on page 7 of the Nigerian pilot newspaper. 7 kidnapped victims of Kaduna church attacks rescued, according to police report. Read that on page 6. NPA's ambitious spending plan faces scrutiny amid persistent port inefficiencies. Page 19, read there. Sadly so, police officer, 2 others killed as security forces repel attacks in Katsina State. This is on page 4. And 3 killed, 1 injured as gunmen attack Haipeng village in Plateau State. Page 5, read the Nigerian pilot newspaper. Checking out now, this Nigeria as the paper next. Now, this story starts on the power crisis. It says 3.3 trillion naira debt payment proposal is 2024 recycled promise. Operators unexcited as federal government's offer as debt now 6.8 trillion naira, and also doubt the sincerity of that promise. Well, that story is on page 2 of this Nigerian newspaper today. FCCPC takes fight against substandard products to electrical building materials market. Page 14. Police reunite missing teenager from Spain with family in Kano. Good one. This is on page 11. And beside the nameplate of this Nigeria, banks, casual workers demand pay parity with permanent staff. We'll read that one on page 4 of this Nigeria. Now to the Daily Monitor. On the matter of insecurity, Atiku Obi slammed Tinubu over renewed attacks. Enough of hollow rhetorics, former vice president tells the president. Renewed attack represents failure of leadership and responsibility. Ex-Anambra governor speaking there. This opens on the front page of the Daily Monitor, continues on page 2. Now, federal government partners Airbus moves to procure emergency helicopters. Page 2 read, troops intercept terrorist supplies, apprehend 16 suspects in Northeast. Page 4 read there. And on the state visit, Tinubu to inaugurate Ojota Okpebi Link Bridge, other landmark Lagos projects. You can read this one on page 10. And that's about it. Tinubu has no role in ADC crisis. It's self-inflicted, says Bayo Onanuga. This opens on the front page here and continues on page 2. Well, that covers it for the Daily Monitor newspaper. Now I'll be checking out the Observer's Times. Now for the Observer's Times, the big story says ADC youth give INEC 72-hour ultimatum to reinstate Mark and Aregbesola. Angry youth accuse the Electoral Commission of undercutting democracy. Well, this story is on page 1 of the Observer's Times newspaper today. Now for the Easter celebration, FCT residents decry hardship, low social activities. Page 3. APC crisis deepens in Jigawa as defection rock party structure. Page 4 read, IGP deploys DIG to Kaduna as police rescue victims after a RICO attack. Page 5 read there. NDLEA raid drug warehouse in Edo, seizes 1,378 kilograms. Read that on page 6. Nigeria's agricultural sector attracts $167.25 million in inflows. That is on page 7. And Dynasty Reloaded, Buhari's son Yusuf eyes House of Reps seat. Opens on the front page here, continues on page 8. That is for the Observer's Times newspaper this morning. Now I'll be checking out next Al Jazeera Nigeria. Now, Al Jazeera Nigeria in Kebbi State, governor's wife urges proper usage ahead of distribution of 3.15 million mosquito nets. Page 20 read, two killed as IED explodes in Niger. This is on page 7. And Civil Society Council passes vote of confidence in Amokwiton. This one is on page 9. On the state of insecurity, Governor Otu launches grassroots intelligence network. Read that on page 7. BVN database hits 68.6 million amid new CBN rule. This is on page 2. REA disburses 9 billion naira for solar mini grid projects in Taraba, Kogi, and others. Well, you can read the story on page 9 of Al Jazeera Nigeria this morning. Well, that's about it. That wraps up the Al Jazeera Nigeria. Well, next we'll be checking out the Daily Global newspaper. And the Daily Global starts with a statement from the INEC chairman, Amokwiton, saying, I am not party to any plan to turn Nigeria into one-party state. Now, that is the statement there. And as that is going on, you have Daniel Bwala also saying, I never called Tinubu drug lord. Well, that's another statement there. And security teams respond to attacks on multiple villages in Shanga local government area is another story here. Government eyes higher revenue as oil prices head to $150. Now, talking about the ADC crisis, we could not match what they were offering him. Abdullahi alleges Nafiu Bala took better deal elsewhere. But that's about it from the. All right, now another story before we wrap up from the Daily Global. Ambassador Yusuf Maitema Tuga resigns as Nigeria's foreign minister. All right, that's it from the Daily Global. Well, up next, we want to check out the Leadership newspaper this morning. And from the Leadership newspaper, we are looking at one of the big stories here. It says Nigeria has lost $56.75 billion to gas flaring. And this is a statement from the World Bank. You can read up on this on page 26 of the Leadership newspaper this morning. In addition to that, Genco seeks Tinubu's clarification of power debt audit. Opens on the front page here, continues on page 7. And Governor Kefa sacks MD, management of asphalt plant over missing funds. Page 6 read, Katsina governors convenes emergency security meeting over rising attacks. Page 7. Again, terrorists kill 4 in KB is on page 21. And 4 die in accident on Lagos Ibadan. Read that one on 22. Well, that's about it from the Leadership newspaper. We want to check out the Nigerian News Direct newspaper this morning. PBEC orders MDA to halt introduction of new policies. Page 12 read, Custom exposes fake vehicle auction scam. This one is on page 13. Tinubu to commission Okpebi Ojota Bridge during inaugural state visit to Lagos, page 3. And editors, Serap, urge President Tinubu to investigate threats against Sheung Okinbaloye. Well, you can read this one on page 2 of the Nigerian News Direct this morning. Next, we'll be checking out the Daily Sun. Like I said, it's going to be quite a few number of the papers I will be checking out this morning. Okay, now onto the Daily Sun. Kaduna Community faults military, says 31 abducted church worshippers still in captivity. This was on the front page of the Daily Sun newspaper and proceeds to the middle page. Well, more stories here. Failed cargo tracking, driving arms smuggling, trade losses, according to stakeholders. And this is on page 25. Ondo police arrest man 23 for alleged defilement of minor. Page 4 read, investigate weakest threat against Channels TV presenter, the Nigerian Guild of Editors, and Serap urged Tinubu. Page 27 read, now gunmen kill cops, 2 others in Katsina police station. Health center attacks, troops intercept suspected terrorists with wounds in Yobe. This is on page 4. Well, that's it from the Daily Sun this morning, among other stories that we've already checked out from other papers. Well, we want to check out now the Daily Asset newspaper. Uh, on Benway killings from the Daily Asset, Amnesty International faults federal government over death of 17 persons. Community groups demand security reinforcement and justice for the victims. This particular one opens on the front page here, continues on page 2. NUJ tackles Wike over threat to shoot journalist. This is on page 23. Sebastian honors honor dumps APC for PDP. Page 13 read, Lagos begins prosecution of 45 alleged tax defaulters. Page 21. Emergency jabs after 100 children die of suspected measles in Bangladesh is a foreign story here on page 26. Well, above the nameplate of the daily assets, new tax law is a story here. NRS take over collection of mineral royalties. This opens on the front page here and continues on page 3. That's it from the Daily Asset newspaper this morning. Up next, we want to check out the Authority newspaper. Sit tight. There are lots of the papers to really check out this morning. All right. INEC may block us from 2027 election, according to ADC spokesman, raises alarm over electoral body not honoring its correspondence. The correspondences rather, opens on the front page here and continues on page 11. Nigeria top Africa in food waste. EU warns. Page 16 read there. FCCPC increases market surveillance on electricals and on building materials. Page 7. Peter Obi laments daily killings in Nigeria on page 11. GOC 82 Div and senior commander visit, division rather, and senior commander visit also Mother Valley Gorg. This is on page 21. Federal government votes 12 billion naira digital economy research support for universities and institutions on page 2. Nigeria's insecurity will end soon. This is coming from the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio. This is on page 2. Ahead of 2027, stop blaming Tinubu for your crisis. APC chieftain tells ADC. Page 10 read. And President Biya appoints son, vice president, and head of armed forces. Well, that's a foreign story there. And this is on page 22. All right, up next, we'll be checking out. And lastly, for today, we'll be checking out the Blueprint newspaper. Now, for the Blueprint, you have how INEC derecognition could shut us out of 2027, according to the ADC. Don't blame your woes on Tinubu, APC chieftain tells coalition. Political science teachers suggest way out. Now, this opens on the front page here and continues on page 2. PBEC to MDAs, halt introduction of new policies, regulations rollout. Urges agencies to familiarize with impact analysis framework. This is also on page 8, although opening on the front page here as well. Federal government orders probe of marginalization of indigenous badge operators, page 26. Early morning fire guards textile shops in Lagos. This is on page 6. Edo widow wins tricycle at MTN family conference. Good news there. This is on page 21. Now for the Middle East war, Trump, Iran defiant over ceasefire deal. Iran vows to avenge killing of intelligence chief by Israel. This opens on the front page here and continues on page 8. Tinubu pays 2-day visit to Lagos. That is tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday. You can read that on page 6. And Nigeria's economy shows stability in the first quarter amid high transportation cost. Well, that is a report, and it is on page 25. Well, that's about it from the Blueprint newspaper, and that's about it from all the papers we've been checking out today, where we've looked at quite a number of them. The Standard Times, Daily Trust, The Guardian, Vanguard, Nigerian Pilot, This Nigeria, The Daily Monitor, Observers Times, Al Jazeera Nigeria, Daily Global, Leadership, Nigerian News Direct, Daily Sun, Daily Asset, The Authority, as well as the Blueprint newspaper. Quite a number, like I said. You're just starting work now for those of us who, observe the public holidays. So you have a lot to go into and you have a lot to understand on what's happening, which is why we took out the time to make this ones available for you. Check out the papers and get to find out the story. Now, ADC is still fighting. trying to make sure that, we are still on the ballot. The decision from INEC, we are not agreeing with it. Whereas there are some set who are also saying we stand with the INEC and the decision, and that has been going on back and forth for some time right now. One thing stands clear: we can't have a one-party state, whether it is, as a result of suppression or what. We just cannot have that because we are a democratic nation. That is a fact that we can't take away from all of this going on with the parties. Now, another thing is, if you haven't, maybe you could, or maybe you have seen that video, that excerpt rather, circulating on social media on how the FCT minister Nyesom Wike threatened to, with the way Sheung, if you know the presenter on uh, Channels Television, where he was presenting, and the FCT minister made the statement that, he felt like he should just, shoot him through the screen and just, kill him from there. And that was quite huge. And now, uh, uh, across the papers, you see the Nigerian Guild of Editors and the SERAP calling on the president to investigate that statement, investigate where that is coming from and why such a threat. And funny enough, one of most of the papers yesterday, or was it over the weekend, recently, in fact, you had the papers where, you were talking about the rights of the journalists, being able to speak. You can't sue them. This one was between the media houses and the NBC. You can't, find them and all of that. So talking about gagging the media or stopping the media, or this whole, should I call that the cyberbully now, or just making sure that one cannot air their views. It's quite real. It's quite real. If you find an FCT minister and someone who is not a novice in the position of leadership making such a very public statement because a journalist is doing their job, it raises a whole lot of concern and fear. And really, really, I also join that statement from the Nigerian Guild of Editors and SERAP to really urge the president to look into it. Apparently, the FCT minister has spoken countless times that the one person he could listen to or take orders from is the president, who is a person he actually sees. So apparently, this is the one person who we can tell to, check that and take decisive, actually take adequate action regarding that. You can't make such a statement towards, someone who is just doing their job. But that's it. That's in the papers. A whole lot of other stories really dominated the papers here. Sadly, killings are still ongoing, and one of the papers reported that, bandits are still planning reprisal attack, and you are wondering, reprisal attack on what? Over what? This was a very sad story. As at was it the same Monday? Yeah, that was yesterday, when we are, looking at the Easter attack and trying to marry that as well with what has also happened during the Palm Sunday, even before the Salah, consistent attack. And you are talking about reprisal attack. I will say it and I will continue to say it. Those who feel that they are strong enough because they see those who are harmless and pounce on them and kill them are nothing but cowards, absolute cowards. You can't just attack people who have done nothing to you and you call yourself a big man, a lord. You are really, reprisal attack on what? Really is a huge question. But that's what you have on the papers. And like I said, we've checked out quite a number of the papers today. Do well to go through any of them and stay updated on all of the papers. My name is Dima, and do not forget that the political platform will be coming your way today by 9:15, and it will also be going live on the YouTube channel talking about Raypower Abuja. So yes, you can also get that and get to watch that live. Now let's take you to the network studio for the news on the hour, a few more conversations before we bring you the fact file at 8:30. Yes, indeed. Enjoy.